Welcome to Jack Theology. Good to be back another week. How's it going? How was your Memorial Day weekend?
It's going well. It is good to be back. My Memorial Day weekend was great. We ended up going away into the mountains for a few days, which coincided with a huge storm in the south, which took out power at our house for 2.5 days. So yeah, it was fortuitous timing, because the only thing worse, I think, than being at home and not traveling on Memorial Day would be being at home without power, like the entire weekend with, two kids, a rabbit, or no, two dogs. How many kids do I have?
Yeah.
4 kids, 2 dogs, a rabbit, partridge in a pear tree.
Yeah.
How was
Wow.
yours?
The zoo. It was good. We hung out here. We went to our pool opened, so we went to the pool a couple times and just enjoyed a good lazy weekend hanging out. And yeah, summer is here. It's humid, hot. We had a storm come through as well. Storming, but
Well, I don't think that God is judging the Northeast quite like he does the South. So
that's true. Yeah, we haven't sinned enough yet.
maybe you can reach the level of sin that we here in the South have attained at some point up there in the Jersey area.
Yeah. So yeah, so we're thankful for all our viewers and followers, and so please like, share, comment. We love the comments or any questions or any thoughts as we're talking. Throw them in, so we can address them. I'll pull up my notes here.
Yeah, I gotta say though, before you get to your notes, I'm still digging the cutoff clergy shirt for those who may not have joined us last podcast for the unveiling. I'm loving this. Though I don't think you took in the shoulders any this week. I thought you were going to slowly take them in. Like
yeah, I need to get a little bit more sun on my arms.
Yeah,
and I'm white.
You're white. Huge, man. You're a beast.
white as they come.
Hey, it doesn't matter how tan or untan you are if you're a beast like you. So
I need to maybe get a tattoo. So this is my random tattoo arm. Maybe I get a little jacked.
I don't know if you guys, you've probably never seen Matt.
So yeah,
but especially from the backside, if you ever see Matt from the backside, like Matt looks like the Hulk. It's insane. You're a beast.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we'll get to the workouts. We're gonna do a fitness one of these coming up. A fitness and theology, the whole hour. So that'll be fun.
Yeah,
but today we want to talk about. Yeah, today we want to talk about kind of finding Jesus, finding yourself, and what that looks like. We've been talking through Kevin's book. We looked at week 1, structuring your life. We looked at the calendar. Week 2, we looked at ways to connect with Christ, put Jesus at the center. Last week, we looked at inerrancy and just how to look at Scripture as an authority, what that looks like. And so this week, just this idea of finding who we are, knowing who we are in light of Jesus, which is an important topic. I think a lot of folks deconstruct from the church to find themselves. I hear that a lot. Pastoring is I need to find myself, and so definitely this generation of young people, they like to travel the world or make a cross-country road trip, or they quit everything to go find themselves somehow, and
take a gap year.
Yeah, gap year. And a lot of people, I think, leave the church that way and I think it's fair, because you've been told to believe a certain thing your whole life and you've never really thought for yourself. And so I think it does force people to ask the question, like, who am I? Like, I don't even know who I am, because I've been kind of forced into this culture for so long. And so I guess it is a fair statement. But I tend to think, kind of an overview, spoiling the lead, bearing the lead a bit, is that you find yourself as you find God. I think they kind of go together. As you find out who Jesus is more, I believe you begin to find out who you were created to be more and more. So I think the two things, for me at least, I've learned kind of go together. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
If
I
you have
don't,
any
I don't,
thoughts on
I
that?
don't, yeah, I don't disagree with that either. I think it is, yeah, it's difficult, if not impossible, in my experience as well, to find myself apart from finding Jesus. I think the difficulty for me has been over the years, oftentimes what I thought was Jesus, what I thought was God, um, wasn't, and so it was taking me further away from what my design was. And so I think, a lot of people would say that's not really been maybe my experience, my involvement with church or my involvement with Christians or my interaction with Jesus or with God actually took me away from myself. And I might actually, I would submit, I don't want to discount anyone's personal experience necessarily, but I would submit in my own life in those times where I felt like that is the case, where I was moving away from myself by moving closer to God, moving closer to Christ, moving closer to the church. I was not moving closer to the real God, the real Jesus, or what the church was supposed to be in. And that's where I really understood Jesus, God, the Bible Church. I I was becoming more who I was and becoming a closer and better version of who I was. So I think for me, that may be the disconnect. I don't know how that is for other people, but in finding myself, it required me to find the true Jesus. And when I did, that was helpful. Philip Yancey wrote a book a few years ago, that Jesus I Never Knew, which was kind of revolutionary, I think, to me, and the beginning of a journey of seeing, the way maybe I've taught or thought about Jesus isn't maybe the Jesus that really exists.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that Philip Yancey does a good job of painting that picture of a different kind of Christ than maybe most grew up with. So some ideas that you bring these out in your book as well, I think, to find yourself, that I wrote down. I think one important thing is the saints. We kind of throw the saints out.
You mean as Protestants throw the saints out?
Yeah, as Protestants and evangelicals, and
even a lot of Catholics I find have a maybe a bit of a more of an openness to the saints, but a lack of understanding, I think, of the saints, both biblically and historically, what the point is. There's a lot of misconceptions there.
Yeah. I think the beauty of the saints, at least for me, is to be comfortable. I think we live in a culture that wants to produce a certain type of person, right? Especially in the church. And so that maybe people deconstruct and feel this way, that if I don't act and behave a certain way, or my personality is not a certain way, I don't fit in. And so you have to fit the mold. And you learn as you read about the saints over the over years in study, you kind of gravitate towards some saints that, kind of tug at your heart, that you connect with in a deeper way, that are more like you, and you see how they lived for Christ in the world, and you begin to see, oh, well, maybe I can live this way. Maybe I can live for Christ in a certain way. So for me, those saints have been encouraging, to just keep going, right? Like, I'm not the first person to live this way and act this way in the kingdom of God. And so I think it's refreshing.
Yeah, I talked about this last week, but St. Jude, a saint right here for me, the patron saint of lost causes for me. So yeah, it's always very near and dear and close to my heart, literally and physically. Saints, for Protestants, I know for me, saints was one of the most, I think, difficult ideas to wrap around. And as I really was kind of thinking through this book and researching ways to help people reconstruct and rethink their faith, especially from an evangelical or Protestant background, saints, as you said, kind of became this life-giving thing to me before I really understood that I was allowed to kind of see these saints and interact with these saints in a way that was positive. And as I kind of went back to scriptures, it was obvious to me that I had been mistaught. I had been maybe even intentionally lied to about this idea of saints. Yes, the Bible does use the word saints in several places to describe all of the people who have a relationship with Jesus Christ. Everyone who is a Christian, the Bible does refer to as saints. But what I found was that sometimes the English obscures this, but whenever I went back to the Greek and the original languages, what you find is that the Bible also, in other places in the New Testament, in the early church times, uses the word saints to describe people who were examples, people who were, I hate to use this terminology, but I can't think of a better word, kind of next level Christians or more mature Christians. So you see the Bible using this word in two ways, to describe everybody, but also to describe people who are more mature or who are kind of set apart or beyond what maybe the norm for a Christian was. And in that moment, I began to understand that perhaps there are people out there who it's okay for me to look up to, that are set apart, that are kind of beyond where I am. And the Bible does this and kind of encourages this, in moments where there is a problem, a death, a sickness, the Bible will encourage the saints, this smaller group, to be called in to help. And so I know that there are a lot of nuances with, is it okay to pray to saints? Is it okay, to see them as patron saints and all these things. But just foundationally, I think that evangelicals and Protestants have a misunderstanding of the way the saints have been used, especially in the early church, and what the Bible condones and allows is beyond what we've been taught.
Yeah, I mean, the scriptures talk about it, right? We're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. Hebrews, the classic passage, talks about this idea that we go with the saints, that the saints surround us, are with us. I think that's comforting to think about, that like, just because, my grandfather passed away and he's no longer here, why he was here, he was a great influence into my life spiritually. He still prays for me. He's still part of my story. And I think when we throw the baby out with the bathwater with the saints, because I think evangelicals got scared of it because we put them on the level of God or something, and that's not the case at all. It's just their stories are part of us, and I believe spiritually they're still interacting for us, and so I think there is a spiritual element to it as well, that people are scared of, and I don't think there's really reason to be.
I don't want people to miss what you said, though. That great cloud of witnesses, that saints, I think is a powerful passage in Hebrews that implies that there are people who are on the other side, who are cheering, who are interacting, who are engaged with what is going on here. And I know that for a lot of evangelicals and a lot of Protestants, our theologies oftentimes that we've been taught will not allow that, because we've been taught that there's a barrier. They can't see anything, that's going on here, that the rift, the chasm is completely separated. First of all, Jesus used parables where that wasn't the case. The rich man and Lazarus, they're able to see what's going on both in earth and in other places in the afterlife realm. But also, I think that so much of our theology is hung as Protestants and evangelicals, especially into Revelation, where we have this whole construct: there will be no crying in heaven, there will be no sadness or disappointment in heaven. And so all of these people who have crossed over in heaven, and they can't see what's going on here because this would make them sad. And so we've built up this whole construct about what happens in the afterlife and what interaction there is back and forth between the here and now and the there and then, that is hung on really shaky theology that doesn't match up with what you just saw in Hebrews and in other places. And so, I heard a Catholic once ask, why would you ask saints to pray for you? Why would you ask people who are already dead to pray for you? What good is that? And, the answer, which, take it or leave it or what you have, but it's well, I ask my grandmother to pray for me whenever I'm having a tough time. I'm asking, lots of people around to pray for me during this time. Explain to me why it's wrong to ask people who are not here, to pray for me, but who are still alive. And my theology still says they're still alive. So I think it really just depends on how you see that veil between here and there. And a lot of Protestants and evangelicals see that veil as a brick concrete wall that's 10 feet thick, like the Great Wall of China. You're not seeing through, you're not getting through, you're not hearing anything. But a lot of people's theologies based in scripture see that veil as very thin. Orthodoxy, that veil is very thin. Catholicism, that veil is very thin. And I think there is a lot of beauty and theological support in us really recognizing that maybe the veil between here and the hereafter is not maybe what we've been taught it is, and there may be other opportunities to see it differently.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Transfiguration, right? Moses and Elijah. There didn't seem to be, that veil seemed to be pretty thin, right, when Jesus revealed them to Peter, James, and John. So,
and I know I keep jumping in on you, but you just got me thinking now. Even evangelicals and Protestants believe in this demonic interaction in the world, and the devil can invade people and drive people, and that demons have their hands in things that are going on. I get called a demon all the time. I get called possessed by Satan all the time online. So even the most fundamentalists, the most hardcore conservative theologically, evangelicals and Protestants believe that this veil between the here and the afterlife or the supernatural or the other realm is very thin. but only on the bad side of things, not on the
Yeah,
good side of
yeah,
things. And I'm like, what the heck?
yeah.
why can it be thin for the bad guys, but not thin for the good guys? Like, that makes absolutely no sense.
No, because it's not fear mongering, right? It's not
Ah,
putting a fear
oh,
into people, right?
interesting.
But yeah, I mean, Jesus on the Transfiguration night,
It's a
that
great
was
example.
very like
Yeah, it's a great
very
example.
real. The saints were just right there, right? Like how, like I think the saints, yeah, I think the veil's very thin, and one day when we're a saint, we'll and we're on the other side with Christ, we'll figure, we'll learn what that's like.
And I think we want it to
Uh,
be, right? I mean, there's a
yeah,
part of me that says, I want this. I desire this. Where's the negative in this? Um, you're right. You look at the example of Jesus. You look at the example of Scripture. You look at your theologies, and you say, what is it about us that desires there to be this wall between the here and between the there? And I think the only answers that come out of that are ones that just are illogical, don't hold up to scrutiny, or really show that we're about something other than truth in what we believe. It's about control.
control is a big reason, I think, too. Modernity, philosophically speaking, how do you prove that? Where's the data? I
We have
think,
an uneasy relationship. Yeah,
yeah.
everything has to be.
I mean,
We don't like science, but
yeah,
we read everything just through the scientific lens, right? I mean, we don't want
yeah,
the science
yeah,
on the creation of the earth. We don't want the science on all of these other things like disease and all of that push against what we want to believe. But we definitely no, supernatural. We have to go the
yeah,
scientific route on this. We have to hold to. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, yeah. So saints is a good thing to explore, to find yourself, another big thing. I'm not sure if you put this in your book. I feel like you did. Spiritual direction. I don't know if you talked about that much, but
Yeah, not much in there, but spiritual direction is. Um, I'm becoming more and more of the opinion, not just of the value of spiritual direction, but almost the necessity or the requirement of spiritual direction. A lot of us, I think, engage and experience this in different ways through mentors, through friends, through relationships and people who we go to and take problems with. But I think that's good and that's important and that's valuable. But I'm also becoming more and more, um, I think, impressed with the need for true, like, professional spiritual direction, people who are trained to do this. And the good news is that there's a lot of heat and desire now to do this. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it was kind of rare to even hear the term spiritual director, let alone be able to have access to one. Now a lot of people have seen the need for it and the value in it and are moving in that direction in order to be trained in order to do that well for other people. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? What do you think about spiritual direction? What's been your experience?
yeah, I think a spiritual director, at least my experience over the last few years, is they really try to get to know who you are at your core, and if you have a good spiritual director, they'll over time maybe know you better than you know you, as they ask questions and listen to you talk and interact. And so, yeah, I think they a good spiritual director will open your heart up, open your soul up, mind up to things you hadn't thought about before. Connect dots maybe you haven't connected before. It's kind of like counseling, but it's not. It is different than just going to therapy. So some people on that listen to this, I have a therapist, I'm good. But I think a spiritual director is praying with you, praying for you. It's almost like I almost see it as akin to like me, my spiritual director, and God are in the room, and we're all
Hmm.
having a conversation together, and the director is directing me to God in the midst of that. And so my spiritual director often says, "What does she always says your God? What does your God say to you
Interesting.
today about this?" Yeah, and which is there's a lot of, I think, wisdom in that, because in some sense we make God in our own image. That's why I think the more we get to know God, the more we become who we are truly made to be. And so I think, spiritual direction has been powerful for me, especially when I'm going through, or if I feel stuck or I'm going through a difficult time. Just to have somebody who is listening to me, my story, praying with me in those moments is a powerful experience, and definitely has helped me get to know myself better, helped me to be myself more wholly. Part of spiritual direction, in the beginning, typically, there's some kind of, Enneagram's popular with spiritual directors, using some kind of tool to help you. Enneagram's been very popular these days because of Richard Rohr and others, and the evangelicals picked that up too. So
it must be okay then.
yeah. But tools like that help you kind of see distinction in who God made you to be. The Enneagram, I think, is a really helpful tool, especially the spiritual side of it. Richard Rohr is a great resource for that he uses in spiritual direction and his spiritual direction training, and helping people identify areas of their heart that need to be healed and made whole. And so, that spiritual direction, I think, is just helping you become you, and connecting you with God in the midst of that. So,
yeah, one of the things I really have appreciated about spiritual direction is just the discipline of time. I think the discipline of intentionality, of taking time to really set aside each week to interact with somebody else about your spiritual journey, where you are, to be vulnerable, to be transparent, to allow somebody from the outside who is an expert to speak into it. And so, to me, there's just so much value just in the discipline of doing it, and in the rhythm that, even if, the person isn't great, I still think that there's value in doing that. And I applaud you and those who really are intentional about setting aside time to do introspection, to dig deep, and to allow other people to have a voice into that. It's rare, unfortunately, for Christians, but I think it's necessary. And you're right, for people who may not be at the level of needing a licensed, certified counselor or therapist to dig into certain things, spiritual direction is a great step in a different direction. And then if things come out in there that need more professional help, then move on to a therapist or something.
Yeah. I've used both. I use both.
And you need both.
Yeah.
I mean, not you in general.
Well, definitely me.
I do.
There's reasons why we called this podcast Jacked. We're both jacked in more ways than one, right?
Yeah, there is a sound clip for people to, post on every single Twitter post you and I make.
Yeah.
We all need therapy. Yes, we do.
Yeah, I got a fun story about that. I was sitting at the pool this weekend, and somebody said, "Do you have a podcast?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "My husband and I, we watched your podcast this week because we saw a clip on it, showed up in our TikTok page, and then we, followed the links to your YouTube page and watched the pod." I was like, "Wow."
They didn't know.
They didn't really. They knew me, but they weren't completely sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So like, wait, we think we know that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So they came up to me at the pool and asked me. I was like, that was me.
You're TikTok famous, or pool famous? I love that.
Pool famous, yeah. So, so spiritual direction, any type of Enneagram type thing. There's tons of them out there. I think is helpful too, just to get to know yourself. Like, I'm always amazed at the first time somebody takes one of these personality or profile tests, how mind blowing it is for them, and just what they learn about themselves. And that's if you haven't done that yet in your life, there's tons of free versions online. Take Test, or Myers-Briggs is another one that's popular. So do that. that'll help get the conversation started, and then go find somebody to talk to about it.
Yeah, Enneagram is a great tool. I think understanding yourself is often a prerequisite for understanding your faith, understanding your path, understanding where you fit. And Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, there are lots of different personality tests out there. Personality tests, I think, are like catnip to humans. We have this insatiable need to categorize ourselves in opposition and comparison and contrast to other people. But Enneagram is really super creative and super fun in the way that it does it. I forget, Crone, I think, wrote the book The Way Back to You.
That's a good book. Yeah.
Ian Crone, I think.
And he has a podcast.
Does he?
He did a series of,
not as good as ours, but
no. And I think it was just like a short, like 7 to 10 episode pod where he talked about the Enneagram and the different personality types.
The Road Back to You is the name of the book.
And he's really helpful. Yeah,
he's a great writer. You'll find it interesting. A great way to learn a little bit more maybe about yourself and understand the Enneagram a little better.
Yeah, and the thing I love about the Enneagram is like the whole idea is to become more whole, like not to stay stuck. So yeah, that's why I love what I love about it. Whereas some of the other ones, it feels like, well, this is you for the rest of your life. You're stuck.
No, that's a really good point, because the Enneagram does it, like breaks it into, I think, 3 different categories. So, if you're an 8, which is a challenger, somebody who's, oftentimes you think of like your classic leader or CEO or pastor who's a go-getter, as oftentimes an 8. But it will give you kind of ways to understand whether you, as whatever your personality type is, an 8 or whatever else, are healthy, are kind of middle of the road, a little healthy, a little unhealthy, or unhealthy. So you kind of get, am I healthy? Am I kind of average, kind of bordering on one way or the other, or am I unhealthy? And it's super helpful to just kind of be able to say, yeah, looking at this, I'm not maybe in a healthy place, or I really am in a healthy place. And if other people aren't necessarily liking me, it may be more to do with them than it is with me not living fully well into who I am and who I was designed to be. We all were designed to be different, and sometimes our differences can be abrasive to people. If you're unhealthy, then you might want to fix those. But if you're healthy, you might want to temper them, but also just say, this is me. And you can accept that.
Helpful. And then I think part of that, the other thing I wrote down, and the question or last week brought it up, is the idea of an examen prayer. I think is helpful just to process your own heart, the process where you're at. As it goes well with, meeting with a spiritual director, going through the Enneagram, knowing yourself that way. Going to the saints too, looking at different saints. And I know for me, Athanasius is a saint that I look to. I feel like his personality type was a lot like mine. And so,
which is that
you could
asshole? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No.
He got in some fights. Yeah.
Well, if you have a very clear opinion, a sense of right and wrong, and if you're very justice minded or justice oriented, you're going to get into some scraps here or there. As you go to bat for other people. Yeah.
So I like to do the examen prayer, to kind of pray through, and it's really what it sounds like to examine your life. If you Google it, I think there's some.
Yeah, I was actually I was looking for one right here to put up.
Yeah, more tangible steps than what I'm giving you here, but
yeah, let me see if I can put one up here that doesn't here we go. It's covering your face. Sorry there, Matt. Let me see if I can make this.
I can't see it, so you'll have to read it.
Yeah, so correct me on any of this if I'm wrong, but the Examen Prayer, it says here, is a method of reviewing your day in the presence of God. It's actually an attitude more than it is a method. It's a time set aside for thankful reflection on where God is in your everyday life. And it has 5 steps. Most people take more or less in order these steps, and it usually takes a few minutes, maybe 15 or 20 minutes per day. But in a nutshell, it's first asking God for light, so that you can see your day through His eyes rather than just your eyes. And it's giving thanks, recognizing that the day that we've just lived is a gift from God, and we should be grateful for it. The third step or part of it is a review of the day, and I think that this is kind of where the examine part of it comes in. But carefully look back through the day as just completed, being guided by the Holy Spirit, and look for God's fingerprints there. Really just kind of assess what happened during the day. Face the shortcomings is the fourth. I face up to what is wrong in my life and in me. And number 5, begin to set that aside and begin to look forward to the day to come. Ask God where you're needed, where He needs you in the day to come. This is a very old prayer, a very old kind of process. If you really want to dig into it, obviously just type in the Examen or the prayer of Examen. I think it goes back to Saint Ignatius of Loyola, if I'm correct.
It's part of Ignatian spirituality, which
Yeah.
we talked about a couple weeks ago. The monasticism, they're big into that. But yeah, this prayer is a good prayer. I mean, some people like to journal, so maybe journal this stuff, write it down. I tend to just thank God for my, the day, things that happened, pray through the day, and then where I, ask forgiveness where I failed. It's kind of how I use it. But it is a helpful tool to help identify yourself, to know yourself, to pray through it. And, for the scientific data, or for the maybe you're not super religious, you're listening to this, and you want to find yourself. The secular world, in the whole concept of finding yourself, talks about this, meditative practices as well as part of finding yourself. So it crosses just even religious boundaries of this being a healthy way to explore your inner person and know and be more confident who you are. So it's not just, I guess it crosses, faith or not faith.
But I think the most legitimate practices of faith do that. I mean, I feel like religion is at its best when it's making humans who they were originally designed to be, what the original intent, what the original operating system was for us to be at our best. And obviously, religion and faith bring in a whole lot of processes and people, Jesus, for instance, things, the Bible, for instance, and Christianity, in order to help accomplish that. But at the end of the day, I think that that's one of the primary goals, is to help shape us into what we were originally designed to be, better human beings, fully human. Leonard Sweet points out that the Son of Man, that Christ is called all throughout the book of Mark, which is the earliest account of Jesus' life, that the Son of Man title given to him over and over and over is best translated as the human one, the one who is human. And so it doesn't surprise me, I would guess, that things like the prayer of Examen and some of these things that you're talking about are good and are helpful, not just inside of religion or for religious people, but are good and are helpful for everybody. And to me, that is when religion is at its best and at its most clearest and most honest and pure understanding and place, is when it is good for all people, not just the uber religious alone.
Yeah. Well, that's essentially what Jesus said, right? Is He came to earth and said, wait, let me show you the right way to be human, or the healthiest way to be human. And that's what He's saying when He says repent. He's not like repent and follow new morality. He's saying repent, stop doing that, because that's not the way humans are designed. Come with me, follow me. I'll show you how to be human. And it's so true. I mean, the more people lean into the way of Jesus, and some of these things, I mean, even the prayer of Examen, you could take it and connect it back to the Lord's Prayer as well. I mean, it all comes back to Jesus and the way He showed us to live.
Now you're getting crazy.
Yeah. And
I love it.
And it's as if He created us and designed us a certain way. And so if we practice these things, it'll make us healthier humans. It's funny how that works, right?
It is.
yeah, I think find yourself, practically do some of these things, I think is important. I think too, I just thought of this now, like you need to also, I think part of finding yourself, and I don't, there's probably Bible verses to support this, but is you really, I think, need also challenge yourself, push your limits. I think, we're big in the, weightlifting and all of that. Uh, doing something hard in the gym, challenging yourself that way, you find out about yourself in the
Yeah.
midst of that. Even us starting this podcast, like just taking a risk. It's not much of a risk other than our pride, I guess. But it's
How many more bridges can we burn with this?
yeah. But it's stretching yourself that way, you find out who you are. I mean, remember the first time I got up to preach, I was so nervous, the public speaking thing, but like you push through it and you find out something about yourself. So any kind of risk, any kind of pushing yourself, I think also too is important to find out who you are, who God made you to be. So yeah,
I think there's a lot of truth in that, Matt.
I mean, there's nothing like laying in a pool of sweat and just questioning your life decisions after a hard workout and question yourself, why did I do this? And all these thoughts. And I don't know. I feel like I grow most when I push myself, I stretch myself. So yeah, do that. Take risks in life. And then I also have to say, like, traveling across the world, you're not going to find yourself doing that.
What? Whoa.
Making
Wait, what?
excuses to travel the world, like just travel the world, go and call it a vacation or whatever it is.
But Matt, I spent all this money to go find myself.
Don't send me letters asking for donations for your mission trip when I really know you're just.
Oh, you're not just talking about finding myself. Now we're taking a gap year. Now you're hitting mission trips. Oh, okay. Where's my popcorn?
Oh yeah. I have strong opinions on mission trips.
White safari trips.
Yeah, white vacations that are paid for by church people
to go do a VBS in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah,
that people in Abu Dhabi could do.
Yeah, it's. I used to do it all the time, and so I guess I get the heart behind it, but it just isn't the right thing to do. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's tough. I definitely can see some value in taking those kinds of trips in order to open up people's eyes to the broader world that they've never seen. Like I know that my first trip overseas with a mission group was life-changing because I really thought that I knew the world just by watching it on TV. Yeah. And seeing, like, whenever you really experience it, like it should change you. But unfortunately, the multiple return trips, the things that get done overseas, like, yeah. I agree. I'm in a place now where I have this like huge uncomfortableness with.
I'll say, like, our denomination, I'll give my denomination a little bit of props here. They've shifted from, making it kind of the vacation club for Christians to more like what you're saying, because really the impact is on the people that go, not the people that live there, right?
Right.
And so I think they're doing more of that. They call them vision trips, where they bring, some elders and leaders from a church to another country in hopes that their heart will break for that country and they'll send money to support the work that's happening there with people on the ground who actually are from that country,
yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of these trips, a lot of the stuff that gets done on there, the money can end up doing a lot more damage than it does good on the receiving end in country. Yeah. And, there's actually been a lot of research and work done on this, and it's readily available, but we don't really want to hear it oftentimes because we like the feeling that we get by doing good, and we don't want that tarnished by the reality of what actually happens. They're like shoeboxes, which I don't want. Compassion, the shoeboxes that get sent overseas from
Yeah, we
Operation Christmas Child and all of that. Anyway, maybe we should move on.
it's well, it's colonialism, right? It's
That's exactly
bringing
what it is.
white culture, white American culture into a place that doesn't need it. And so that's what I don't like. Or I had a friend, I got a letter, and now it's like Facebook messages or whatever, who was becoming a missionary in England. And legit, as I dove into it, his mission was to hang out in pubs. I was like, I want that gig. What? I'll go with
How do I
you.
get that?
Just to sit around and hang out in pubs all day in England? Come on, man.
Well, yeah, and you don't even.
Anyways,
I mean, we don't
yeah,
even
we
think about.
digress.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep digressing. Like, we're sending gifts to overseas, like white Barbies to non-white kids. To play with. We're sending GI Joe. We're sending military.
American
guns.
military figures.
Yeah, to kids overseas, who are dealing with war and guns and gangs, and like just even the the commercialism of Christmas we talk about all the time in Christianity, even evangelical Christianity, how it's become so commercialized. And what is our primary way in order to be a mission opportunity for most evangelical churches? We are commercializing other countries by sending gifts to them on Christmas. Like here, we're like, oh, Christmas is going to become so commercial, all these gifts, all these advertisements, and all these stores putting up Christmas trees in July. But let's get that box gift wrapped up and ready to send overseas so that we can multiply America's bad Christian Christmas culture all over the world in a shoebox.
Yeah, preaching to the choir.
Wake up! You're killing me.
And unfortunately, it's sad. I mean, I guess moving to news that missionary couple in Haiti that got killed this past week.
Yeah,
young white couple, American couple. I hate to say it, but they had no business being there.
Yeah, educate me. They were not. This is a tough one for me, because I feel like anything they were not, educate me, they were not murdered because they were missionaries, right? Like it wasn't a targeted situation. It was just simply they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't know if their ethnicity, being white,
well,
played into it, but did their Christian, I guess maybe the only people who are white are Christian missionary. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't dove deep enough into it, but they were killed at the church.
Okay.
Well, near the church. They were leaving the church, got kidnapped. They ended up getting let go. But still like surrounded by the thieves at the one gentleman's home that died. And I believe the one gentleman that died was Haitian. So they were but they were targeted because they were, in my opinion, they looked like rich Americans. So they were, it was a robbery gone wrong, if you will. So, yeah, I mean, countries like that, it's like there's reasons why a lot of white organizations don't send missionaries to Haiti because of this. Like Haiti is, I think, one of those countries where you really want to get Haitians and locals on the ground and supported, and you kind of, white missionaries would be more like one-off. Like I'm a nurse, and so I'm going to Haiti to help, from a tragedy that happened, and the earthquakes that happened there, or a hurricane, and they need help that way. But I know a lot of these organizations no longer send like traditional missionary couples from America there because of the violence in Haiti. It's very common. So yeah, I don't know their whole story. I don't know, but to me, it's very sad. And I think this is what happens when you're not self-aware about this, like these issues. more and more missions organizations are, seeing the data that you and I see and agree with us. They would agree with this conversation, and so they're finding new ways to be missionaries on the field like that. Which ultimately, a good mission organization would want to empower local people to disciple and pastor and shepherd, their countrymen.
Okay,
So
this is a tragic, awful situation. Nobody wants this. Nobody likes this. Nobody deserves this. No matter how much of an issue you may have with missionaries and sending non-native people into native situations, especially dangerous ones. Nobody deserves this, no matter how stupid they may or may not have been with their safety or with their people's safety if they were going as a part of an organization. I think we are learning, but all too slowly, that the best mission work is done by people who are native to whatever situation where the need is. And I think, for far too long, in so many situations, it's been the great white American savior complex, coming into situations, financially in disaster areas, coming into situations, with their religion, in order to, give salvation to the natives. And oftentimes we're going into countries doing this where there is already an established presence of the Church of Jesus Christ. So, my question kind of in this situation is, are there not churches in Haiti? Are there not Christians in Haiti that are Haitian? And maybe there's not, maybe there needs to be more. But so often what I see in so many of these countries is white people going in, establishing churches or changing churches to a white style of ministry and operation when there are 15 Catholic churches that are preaching the gospel, when there are 15 local, denominational churches that are essentially Protestant, but not a Protestant situation, that you would understand. And it's just like, Jesus is there, support, come alongside, find out what you can do to help the work of Jesus that's already being done in the situation that you're in. You're not part of you're not going into the bush anymore to give the gospel to people who have not already had the gospel presented to them by their neighbor locally. Like, we don't live in a world anymore that's so disconnected that the gospel has not gone into all of the world. The gospel has essentially now pervaded, invaded, saturated the entirety of the world. It's just a denomination that's different than yours, a style or that's different than yours, or a color skin that's different than yours that's done it. And so what you're essentially doing here isn't evangelism or mission work. You're doing what happens in the US, and you're trying to plant your church and your theology on every street corner in a place where not only is it not needed, but it's also not wanted.
Yeah, this happens all over the place. Brazil's another one I thought of where this happens a lot, where they target white Americans for robberies, and many times their missionaries either get. I actually have a friend that I went to seminary with who was a missionary to Brazil, and him and his wife got kidnapped. She got released, and he was in prison, if you will, kidnapped for months. And it was unnecessary because one of the most Christianized nations in the world is
Brazil.
Yeah. So
some of the best people I know are from Brazil. Some of my best friends are from Brazil. Some of the most mature spiritual Christians I know are from Brazil, and it had nothing to do with white people that they got that way.
I know. Yeah. It's sad. Yeah. I don't get it. Like, it's not like we're sending, an American to pastor an American community in Brazil. It's like we're sending a white American into the slums of Brazil to pastor Portuguese speaking Brazilians that are not white. So I agree. I think it's sad that still organizations are like this, are putting people at risk.
And why do they do it? I don't know why this organization did it, but why do they do it oftentimes? Like, the SBC, the Southern Baptist, which I do know a lot about, having been involved, it's because of the finances of it, because Americans will give to that type of ministry in ways that they will not give to other types of ministry. And you have to feed the kids of the people who run the organization. And at some way, shape, or form, you start making decisions that are based more on finances and administration costs and growth than you do what actually is probably best and right, and most representative of what the Bible calls for when it calls us to go into all the world.
True that. Now, that was the first news bit. Second news bit. Christian Nationalist, actually connected to a comment. We had a comment like a week or two ago about from Brandon Foote. He said he left a Christian Nationalist fellowship after 17 years in 2021. And he said he was manipulated through guilt and fear. It was nice to get away from, but it's hard to see when you're deep in it. The anxiety is what got me away from it, is what he commented. And so there, there's this Christian nationalism thing out there where there's a group of people that have influence, and beyond just Twitter, of they're calling people to vote a certain way. They're now putting out, and we'll get to that, they're putting out missives of these 5 things we want to see from a Christian government, which, as you read them, and we'll read them here, aren't very Christian at all.
Well, it's nationalism, and anybody who doesn't know what Christian nationalism is, the best thing you can do is just Google the word nationalism, and then just understand that it's Christians who are doing it. It's the attempt to set up a Christian theocracy, a Christian nation, which on the surface sounds good, but the difficulty when you get under the hood, and this is what I think you're about to show us, is what happens when you get under the hood, is on the surface it sounds really good, and they'll give a few verses and say, why wouldn't we want a good and moral and Christian nation? But when you kind of press as to what will that truly look like when actually kind of executed, when brought to the forefront, in the past, they wouldn't really tell you what that looks like. Now, unfortunately, there is so much momentum and so much heat and so much, I think, freedom in them, because they feel now that a lot of people want this, and there are a lot of people siding with them, that now they feel emboldened to say really what this Christian nation looks like. And it's very easy to begin now to see that there is nothing Christian about Christian nationalism from the folks who are now these days promoting it.
Yeah. So this kind of reinforces what you just said. So Brian, I always say Sauvé. I don't know how you say his name, but it'll pop up here. And he's saying what is being proposed, and he lists 10 things. The first couple don't sound too bad. So he says regain the political will to act our own national interests, which most of us who vote, we vote for someone who, has our interests in mind. So
take care of local rather than international, I think is what he's saying. Focus on America, focus on our best rather than anybody
Restore
else.
National awareness and cherishing of our Protestant roots. Adopt a clear statement of Christ's rule over in the nation. I mean, a little scary there, but not.
If you're Protestant, it's not scary.
Yeah,
if you're
but
Catholic or Orthodox or unsaved.
Yeah, there's some red flags there, but maybe more yellow flags there. But I don't mind. Yeah, Christ's rule over the nation, sure. And here he begins, verse number 3: universally criminalize abortion, sodomy, lesbianism, pornography, transgenderism, and other sexual perversions. That, I think, is the real goal. Is it real? I mean, he put it as number 3. So definitely a goal of these Christian nationalists is to get to criminalize, homosexuality is their main goal.
Yeah, and by criminalization, let's be clear, a lot of what they're calling for is capital punishment. Like, when they say abortion, by criminalize abortion, literally, and they've said this, it's not simply for many of them, saying, no, you can't have an abortion, but it's criminalizing it to the point of you could receive time. But many of them are also calling it for 1-to-1. If you believe the Bible calls abortion murder and the 10 Commandments says they shall not kill, and then it's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, then what they're essentially saying here is, lady, if you get an abortion, you're going to the electric chair. Like this is what is in view here for many of these Christian nationalists. And that's just abortion, not even talking about the other ones and other sexual perversions. I love the generalization there. Yeah. What are you going to define as other sexual perversions that many people may not?
I mean, they call it a slippery slope. Let's call it what it is. I mean, I guarantee you, part of that is if you have sex outside of marriage, it could be criminalized. Obviously, cheating on your spouse will definitely be criminalized. So yeah, the pornography one I've seen a lot lately. They're throwing in there to, I think, remain consistent because it wasn't in there, and now they're throwing that one in there as well, which which I laugh because you probably have to throw everybody in jail.
Guarantee most of the Christian nationalist pastors are going to fail at that pornography one on number 3.
Oh yeah. Well, you'd have to completely eliminate it from culture because you literally, I mean, you can't, even if you're not looking to get on a porn website, you can't like avoid it in this day and age. Even on Twitter, I mean, sometimes I'm scrolling through Twitter threads and all of a sudden there's boobies right in front of me. So yeah, that one.
You're not just going to hell, Matt. You're going to the slammer now.
Yeah. So that's number 3. Number 4, forbid the construction of mosque and other places of Muslim worship. And here's where it's really scary. Islam cannot peacefully coexist with Christians. So here's
Christians can't peacefully coexist with Christians. Muslims are like, wait, what did we do? Why Muslims and mosques?
This is Hitler right here, right? Like Hitler went after the Jews. Like, so here they're going after it, Muslims. The same way. Like
Fourth Reich.
Islam cannot peacefully coexist with Christians. That's scary. So we're going to use violence to eliminate Islam from America is what I'm reading there.
Ethnic cleansing, religious cleansing.
Religious and ethnic cleansing. Because what's going to stop you from any Arab-looking person, removing them as well, right?
So much for freedom of religion and freedom from religion.
It's scary. Sounds a lot like Nazi Germany there.
And then you've got your second number 4, which it humors me. The idiocy of Christian nationalism is probably best exemplified by the idiot who can't even number his list correctly. Like 1, 2, B, 4, 4, D. I mean, it's an easy pot shot, but at the end of the day, if you follow Brian, it's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Sadly, though, there are a lot of Christian nationalists who are smart, but in devious, conniving kind of ways. It's scary.
Yeah, they're having a big conference coming up.
Trash World, Defeating Trash World, I think is the name of the conference. Defeating Trash World. Yeah, thank you for calling God's creation Trash World. You piece of trash. Oh yeah. So okay, the second number 4. Go for it.
The racist in him comes out here. Repeal the Civil Rights Act, and I've seen some follow up tweets and stuff from him about this. And essentially, the Civil Rights Act was to prevent white people from being able to be white, and so it's evil and needs to be repealed so white people can just be white, which means what? Be racist.
Well, yeah, and it's it's interesting though that they're pivoting from trying to say that it's the racism by saying the Civil Rights Act is we shouldn't be forced to bake cakes for people who we don't want to bake cakes for. I'm like, you realize what the Civil Rights Act really is there for, right? And yeah, they do. It's interesting. There aren't a lot of non-white Christian nationalists, and I guarantee there aren't a lot of non-white Christian nationalists who number 4, part 2, is on their list. But I guarantee you that every white Christian nationalist, that's a part of what their theology is.
Yeah. It's scary. They call it a racist act against white people. That one sounds a lot like the Ku Klux Klan of old. They would say stuff like that.
Well, it's
So,
not a surprise that whenever these Christian nationalists get together and march, that they wear white bandanas over their face in order to hide their identity.
oh yeah, yeah, yep, and they carry Nazi flags sometimes. Um, number 5, which
Number
is really
5.
number 6.
Number 5.
In women's suffrage, repeal the 19th Amendment.
This is a big one for them, though. I mean, they've
Been on this for a while.
Kind of started with
Yeah.
this, for understandably so. I mean, patriarchy. Women should be in the home. Women should vote the way that their husband tells them to vote, if they vote at all. But also, it's because women don't usually side with the Christian nationalists in their voting. Women are a danger to Christian nationalism. Women are a danger to their ability to repeal the Civil Rights Act. Women are a danger to their ability to control abortion. Women are a danger to them. So, they want white, working, middle-class men to be the ones who vote and direct and lead the nation for obvious reasons.
Which is interesting because they have at least one chief or one justice, Supreme Court justice, who's a very conservative woman who helped them repeal abortion, Roe v. Wade. There may be 2, but anyways, it seems. And then there's a lot of women in Congress that would have to go as well that are very conservative and help them. So it'd be interesting how they cross those bridges if they ever get there.
Yeah, will they allow women on the Supreme Court?
Yeah, especially conservative women, but they're not allowed to vote. So, how could you be on the Supreme Court if you have no right to vote? Your vote doesn't count. I don't know, but we'll find out. Hopefully we never find out. But yeah, they hate women. They just want women. I'll give them credit though. This group of people, they make their women wear head coverings in church. They have Brian. This guy Brian his wife has a website of different head coverings he makes for women. So, and they wear them every week. Number 6, quote unquote 6, really 7. Deport illegal immigrants. Close the border to immigration. Most immigration. That probably means white people can come to America.
I mean, let's ignore what the Bible says about welcoming the stranger. Let's ignore what let's ignore what the Bible says about immigrants. Let's ignore that Jesus was an immigrant who was fleeing from religious terrorism. It's all about whiteness here. All of these.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, who's going to mow their grass if they deport illegal immigrants? That's what I want to know. It's just and they claim to be American, right? They love colonial America, and it's like, well, everyone was immigrant. I mean, the whole nation was founded on immigration. So I can kind of see, like, from a political standpoint, like getting rid of, that's been popular for a while from the right, is to deport illegals, but to close the borders is very anti-American. So that's
I think all of this is anti-American, and they try to sell it as this is the American way, but this is very anti-American.
In policies of global policing via wars of aggression, regime change, etc. I don't know. I mean, that one's.
It sounds good on the surface, but what they're. Yeah. I think in my mind, you may have a different perspective. In my mind, it's keeping America's money inside America. It's in a situation like the Ukraine, they would side with Putin. They would not want us doing anything in Ukraine or being involved in Ukraine. In the Israel-Gaza situation, let Israel have it. Gaza's Palestine's out of line. So I think, on the surface, this sounds good in global policies of global policing via wars of aggression and regime change. But what they're really saying here is we're not against regime. We're for the wrong regimes, and we want America to stand idly by. Now, as a Christian, I'm borderline, almost wholly, pacifist. I believe that my faith calls me to be that for a country, for America, especially one that is a superpower around the world. I don't believe that that's in the world's best interest for Putin, places like Israel, to just be able to do what they want, to allow Hitler, under Hitler, World War III, we would all be speaking German around the world, if we bought into, as a nation, number 7. So on the surface, it sounds great, but I think when you dig into it, the difficulty is what's really behind this, and what they really desire is something that is extremely counterproductive to peace and to the world in general.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. I agree with what you said. I agree with all of that. And number 8, repeal no-fault divorce laws. I think this goes back to, the sexual,
and controlling women,
perversion thing. Yeah, controlling women,
keeping women in abusive, toxic relationships because the man is in charge. I guarantee if a man wants to get out of a marriage because his wife isn't having sex at the rate at which, or capacity at which, Brian wants it, they'll be allowed to have that divorce. But if the wife has an issue with the husband, no fault.
We see that already.
Understand no fault divorce.
No, but we already see that already in their cultures at church, where they're convincing the wife to stay in an abusive marriage, that it's a sin for you to leave. And so these women who submit to this leadership, it's already happening in their cultures. They're creating that culture already, and it's sad.
And there's there's no fault divorce legally, no fault divorces, but there's always a reason why people are separated or getting divorced. There's always a fault or a problem or an issue somewhere. So
who's going to judge that?
No fault divorce. You need to have a reason to divorce. Well, every single person who goes through a no fault divorce, there is a reason for that. This isn't Christianity, y'all.
No, it's sad, and we have to address it, I think, because it's becoming more and more popular, and more, Harrison Butker, we talked about last week, was talking about it.
And I probably said too much.
Yeah.
I felt a little bad afterwards. I was like, I probably shouldn't have said all that.
But so it's becoming more prevalent, and I think we need to speak against it. And it's going to be on the ballots this fall, unfortunately, with Trump. He's going to push these items, some of them pretty hard, and get the Christian Nationalists riled up, and he's popularizing it, as well as some of these folks.
Yeah.
So it's dangerous, and we need to be wary of it. So, that's all I had for today. So if you have any comments or not, we can.
Yeah, no, let's head on. I'll see you in the after show.
What's going on?
I know you've been hitting it hard recently. I know you came through Memorial Day weekend, so I did not eat great on Memorial Day weekend, but trying to get back on the horse. But how are things going? I think last week it was 25 pounds.
25.
You were at?
Yeah, I hit the Yeah, I hit 27 pounds. I haven't weighed
Dang.
myself after Memorial Day weekend though, but
Dang. That's amazing, man. It really is.
thanks. Yeah. So I'll probably weigh in again this weekend after I've had 4 or 5 days doing it right. But yeah, I'm heading the right direction, and yeah, hitting the gym, um, pumping the old iron. So been doing more like bodybuilding, weightlifting stuff the last
How's that
couple
been feeling?
weeks. It's good. Yeah, uh, I enjoy it. I like to throw up a lot of weight and isolate muscles groups and burn those things suckers out.
I mean, I
Um,
know CrossFit
but
is your jam,
I
but
also enjoy CrossFit and just dying in a pool of sweat sometimes too. So I don't know which is my favorite. I will say that the bodybuilding style is definitely like more. We talked about Examen today. It's like an hour where I can do an Examen, right? I
yeah.
can, or I can listen to a book and help me process things. Whereas CrossFit, that doesn't happen. So I think so I do enjoy that more than the CrossFit hour. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean CrossFit it is intense. Uh, the whole way through, and it also, once you really kind of understand CrossFit, it's also extremely calculated in that it takes really a lot of brain power, and synergy between your brain and your body to do your best there. It's not always the strongest or the fastest person who wins. It's the smartest person, oftentimes who gets the
Yeah.
who gets first place, on those things. Whoever is able to kind of massage and understand their body and their limits and how to get the best out of it. And so there's not a lot of brain power there to devote to thinking or other things. Whereas
Yeah.
classic
Yeah.
weightlifting, bodybuilding, it's a little slower.
Yeah.
Works things differently and allows you to kind of rather than amps you up in a lot of ways. It kind of mellows me out, at least to be doing that. But it feels good, But yeah, I mean, you look at those CrossFit bodies and you're like, dang,
Yeah.
um, you know, it works if you invest
Well,
and keep going.
the tip of the spear guys though, it's funny because they do a lot of bodybuilding work too. Uh, they just have time to do it all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. You don't build a big body in CrossFit. You will typically build a very lean body in CrossFit that is ripped, but it won't necessarily be huge or
Yeah.
jacked unless your genetics are crazy. So
The top guys though, they have to carry around a little weight so they can lift heavier weights. It's interesting to listen to them talk. These are the tip of the spear guys, right? These are the guys
yeah,
that compete, but they see the value in carrying a little extra weight to help them with the heavier weights. So yeah, um, that's me. Oh, I have a story. So the perk though of doing more bodybuilding stuff is you do a lot of bench press, and so I definitely cherry picked a CrossFit workout last week where I went in on bench day and
nice.
completely destroyed the workout. So much so that I was done for my class. I was done. It was a 30-minute workout. I was done in about 15 minutes or so, and um, took a phone call from the lobby area. Uh, was on the phone and then went back to clean my station up when everybody was done. And the person next to me was like, "Did you not finish the workout because you had to take a phone call?" And I go, "Nope, I was done." Then I took a phone call. And they're like, "Whoa, you killed that!" I was like,
Yeah.
"Yep." I guess the muscle mills are really helping me out with the bench.
Well,
So
you've done CrossFit long enough and then lifting long enough as well. Like you're a beast. In the old days, like in the movies in the '80s, like in the bar with the pool table, you would be the hustler. You'd be the guy who'd come in and people would be like, nah, this guy doesn't know pool. We're gonna
yeah,
take him for all the money that he's got, and then that just wipes them all clean. That's how you are in CrossFit. Like you show up and people are like, dude, this guy, okay, whatever. And then
Yeah.
you just wipe the floor with people. I love it. I love it. Just kicking asses everywhere of people who are half your age, half your size.
Yeah,
Like,
that's great.
Twice as much confidence as you have, but you don't need it because you could back it up. I love it.
Yeah.
I love those stories.
Yeah. So yeah, that's me. How's it going for you?
Yeah, things are going well. Still losing a little bit of weight, as weeks progress, and definitely though losing body fat, losing inches. I keep looking in the mirror. I'm telling my coach, I'm looking small. I'm feeling small. And he sent me like 2 pictures side by side of where I currently am and when I started, and he was like, "You were like 15 pounds heavier in the first picture, but you look like twice as jacked now, like twice as big now as you did then. So, stop judging. You're not saying things correctly. Yes, you're smaller, but you look a lot larger than you did then. It just kind of continues to mess with your head. But progress is going. It's like, all right, by the end of June, this is the waist size that I want to see on you. This is, the body fat percentage that I want to see on you. This is these are the measurements." And he's like, "All right, this is what we got to do to get there." Okay. I just know, like, I'm waiting for it now, man. I'm waiting for him to start cutting calories. I know it's there. Right now he's just feeding the furnace, like just throwing carbs into the furnace, just burning them. But I know at some point he's gonna be like, we're gonna give you a couple of apples and a head of broccoli for today. Yeah, it's my day of reckoning is coming.
The dried fruit stuff is pretty good. I don't know if you've dabbled in that.
I love dried fruit, but I haven't dabbled yet in it as a way to get through.
It's a good snack, healthy snack.
My problem is I eat way too much of that stuff because it doesn't have the satiating, thing as non-dried fruit. So it's like, you can have an apple as a part of what you're eating, but there are like 3,000 apples in one of those dried apples. Like, how do you fit 3,000 apples in that bag of dried apples? Like, how many calories do? Well, about 3,000 apples.
Yeah.
But darn, those things are good. It's so good. I mean, dried fruit is amazing. Mango, by far, one of my favorites.
What I had this afternoon, the mango dried fruit.
It's such good stuff.
It's like eating Skittles or something.
All right, man. It was good to see you today.
All right, yeah. Have a good day.
See you next week. Hope your weighing goes well. And if not, hopefully it's better by the time we record next time.
Yeah.